Donnie John Huber here from our remote studios in the wonderful Ocean Pines, Maryland. Coming at you to talk a little bit about education today because I got time. So, how long are schools going to be closed and what about testing? Well, no one really knows the answer to those two questions, but if you look at some of the hints on the that are out there, you can probably start to put a little bit of an opinion together, an informed opinion, if you will. That's kind of what I've done. I'll share it with you. Let's start with the first question. How long are schools going to be open? Or closed, rather. The other day, on March the 12th, there was a web meeting, if you will, from all the heads of the education in the federal system. There was a deputy director or a deputy secretary who kind of ran the meeting, and he went down all the issues that the CDC had recommended. And then each person in this meeting kind of went through his or her own part of that puzzle. They talked about testing, they talked about students with disabilities. There was some concerns about students with like 504 plans and disabilities and IEPs, being able to get services and that sort of thing. But the main focus was mainly on safety as far as the CDC is concerned and what they've recommended. So the deputy secretary who's kind of leading this coronavirus working group kind of went and talked about the recommendations that the CDC gave. And it's interesting because if you look at their website, and when they talk about education, there's essentially four levels of shutdown. One is the short term, which is when a school finds a positive situation in their individual school. You shut the school down, you have a deep clean, you clean it, and then you reopen within a day or two or three. And if you remember, there was a private school here in Maryland, I can't remember which one, they kind of did that. So that was what the recommendation was at the time. Then there's three levels of shutdown: short term, mid-term, and long or extended term. The short term they define about 2 weeks. And each one of those levels, short, mid, and long term, has a list with that of pros and cons. And the only one that says that this will have an impact on the spread of the virus as far as the whole population is concerned, the whole United States, is the long-term shutdown, 8 or more weeks. 2 weeks, it says it will have a minimal, if any, impact. Midterm, 4 weeks or so, not going to have an impact. 8 weeks or so will have the most impact. But there's other pros and cons too that they list, and if you go in there, you can find it interesting. One of the concerns is that, okay, if they shut schools down for 2 weeks or 4 weeks, then it takes the student population and then it mixes them with the older population. Because according to their research, according to their numbers, 40%, I think it's 40%, yes, 40% of grandparents actually supply childcare to a lot of these students. So now you're mingling the younger population with the older population, who, as we all know, is very vulnerable to this. So they're kind of not sure what to do here. But anyway, the recommendations a few weeks ago, or about a week ago, on their thing said the current recommendation is 14 days. That has since disappeared. I can't find that anywhere. So now they're kind of in a kind of this nebulous world. They're not exactly sure what to do. And it only reasons it only is normal because we've never really faced this before. So the pros and the cons are listed for each of the three levels: 2, 4, 6, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and beyond. It would appear that some of the jurisdictions are starting to look at mid or long-term closures. Topeka, Kansas, shut it down the rest of the year. It's like, whoop, done. Shut it down. No more school this year, period. And locally, my stepson goes to Morgan State. They have shut down all face-to-face education this year. They're still doing the online stuff, and they're in a lot better position than a lot of the K-12 schools to do that sort of thing. They've shut down everything face-to-face for the remainder of the year, including graduation and whatnot. So you're starting to see a little bit about this. I also find it interesting that as you look around the country, I was going to do a little bit on what everybody else is doing. Everyone else is pretty much following the CDC guidelines. But it's interesting looking at all the different ways each state has their system set up. Maryland's very clear. Dr. Salmon has the ultimate authority. She's the state superintendent of schools. She closed schools, case closed. Every state's not quite like that. A lot of states have local jurisdictions have the authority within them. So you see a little bit of that tug of war I talked about the other day in some of the other states. Fortunately, it's not the case here in Maryland. She's in charge. She shut it down, rightfully so. But now the question is, how long are we going to be shut down? If you look at some of the writing on the walls, both on what the CDC has recommended before, they said 14 days. Now that's gone. Now they're not really saying anything. But if you look at the pros and cons of the short, medium, and long-term guidelines that they put out, they basically said that only 8 weeks or longer will actually have an impact on this. So something tells me that that's what we might be facing. The other day I did a video and I mentioned about Baltimore County being in a really good position as far as the being able to do this and go straight electronic, but they didn't. And I've had some comments. A good friend of mine pointed out to me. They say, well, only the secondary has that ability. The elementaries don't have the one-to-one devices like the secondaries do. Something tells me that there might be something in the works to correct that. I'm just saying. So anyway, that's where we are. Short-term, mid-term, long-term. You don't really know for sure, but the CDC is recommending, or that they're not actually recommending anything, but in their guidelines, they say the only thing that will have an actual impact is 8 weeks or longer. Testing. What about testing? If you dig a little deeper, part of that that issue was recommending about testing waivers. The feds have very clearly said, and it's all there for you to see if you want to dig around. If not, I got time. I'd be happy to dig it up for you. They have stated very clearly they are ready, willing, and able to issue what they define as targeted waivers for following for compliance, if you will, with the ESSA, the Elementary Secondary Education Act, or Every Student Succeeds Act, which is a reauthorization of the the Every Student Succeeds Act, which is MCAP for Maryland, all the testing and whatnot. My question becomes, what about some of the larger issues on the secondary? I mentioned this before. No one's really addressed this, and they probably won't for a while. What about graduation requirements? What about and look, folks, this is a tough situation. I'm sure they're going to figure it all out. Okay, no one's going to fail because they didn't go to school or whatnot. So that's it. How long are we going to be closed? Who knows? But the writing's on the wall. It might be some time. What about testing? It looks like they're ready, willing, able to issue some waivers, and there you have it. So, thanks for stopping in. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Give me a comment or two. Love to hear from you. If you have anything you want me to look up for you or any questions, I'd be happy to try and find the answer. I'm no expert, but I got some time. So good to see you. Thanks, and have a great day.